So our next speaker is Roy Ratnawale. He's a retired business executive and a former vice chairman of CI Global Asset Management, Canada's largest independent asset management company. He's also the celebrated author of Canada's #1 bestseller, 1056. I need to add one more line. So, Prisoner 1056 outsold Harry and Meghan's book in Canada. So, join me in welcoming Roy to the stage. Thank you.
Wow. That's, my head's going to get too big. My wife already thinks I have a big head. Now it's going to be really big. Well, listen, thank you, first of all, for everyone for coming here today. It really means a lot to me. I have a prepared speech, but I also want to say a lot of things from the heart. But before I get going, I would say that sometimes success in life is merely hanging on when others would want to let go. Not doing anything spectacular or out of the ordinary by acquiring businesses to achieve success, but simply carrying on with life. Many Eelam Tamils, including me, felt this way when we fled Sri Lanka and arrived on friendly shores like United States, Australia, Canada, and the UK. நினைப்பதெல்லாம் நடந்துவிட்டால் தெய்வம் ஏதுமில்லை, நடந்ததையே நினைத்திருந்தால் அமைதி என்றுமில்லை. இந்த எளிமையான மடை துறந்த வெள்ளமென பொங்கி பாயும் அந்த வரிகள் கவிஞர் கண்ணதாசனுடையது. ஈழப்போரின் போது இலங்கையில் வாழ்ந்து துன்பப்பட்ட ஒவ்வொரு தமிழ் நபரும் கவிஞர் கண்ணதாசன் வரிகளை உடனடியாக சான்றளிக்க முடியும். To those who may not understand Tamil, especially the Honorable Steve Tuckwell and many other youngsters here in the room, I like to translate that loosely by those lyrics by King of Poet, Kannadasan. He said, in life, if everything that you thought happens, then there's no God. But thinking about what happened will never give you peace. And this is how every Eelam Tamil, Sri Lankan Tamil who fled the country to sanctuaries like UK felt. Elorukum enadu vanakkam. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you very much for being here today when you could be with your friends and family. Before I forget, I want to thank a whole host of people here in this room. First, Honorable Steve Tuckwell for taking the time to come here. Thank you very much. And my good friend, Roy Maurice, and Subra, who's in the audience, who was also in Penang. What happens in Penang stays in Penang, Roy. And also I want to thank some of my family members here, especially Theban family, Danu, Chitti, and the kids, and also Subha and Pradeepan. Thank you for coming here to support. And Uncle Raj, who's in there, thanks for coming, Uncle. Exactly 35 years ago, this year, I left Sri Lanka in search of a better life, a life of freedom and choice. 2 days after I landed in Toronto, my father was killed by a single bullet on April 21st, 1988. That was 35 years ago. He was 53 and I was 18. My father's untimely death left me with the feeling that I had to live for two people. I thought if I did well enough in life, somehow I could make up for the life he should have had. I used that pain of his death as coal for furnace of my ambition. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I stand in front of you 35 years later, at the age of 53, as a father of an 18-year-old son. Now, my father not only lives through me, but also through my son, his grandson, as well. நடந்ததே நினைத்திருந்தால் அமைதி என்றுமில்லை. As poet Kannadasan said, there is no peace if you think about what happened. Though past events are unchangeable, they can serve as an important lesson in overcoming struggle in life to strive for a better future. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. We are all worthy of a life we desire, but it can only happen under the right conditions. Many Western nations, like the UK, provide us Tamils with those conditions, freedom and choice. We Tamils know this well. Ever since my father died tragically, he has been with me. Perspective is the key to how one fares in life. I wanted to do nothing with my past. It's all about the future. I learned that despair can become a doorway. The path to happiness, ladies and gentlemen, begins and ends in the mind. All you can control in life is how you respond to life. If you spend too much time thinking of your past, you won't be ready for the future. For many Tamils like me, countries like Canada, UK, USA, and Australia, and other Western nations was the much needed prosthetic to an amputated spirit when we arrived on those friendly shores. My father knew in Canada I would have opportunities that he never had. He didn't send me to Canada just to survive. He sent me to Canada to live his death, my life. After my father's tragic and untimely death, I wanted to prove him right too. Since then, I have devoted the decades I lived outside of Sri Lanka to making the most of the incredible opportunities Canada had offered and the warmth and the encouragement of the people whose paths I have crossed. Both would have astonished my father even in his most optimistic moments. I wrote The Prisoner 1056 as an act of gratitude to my father, whom I observed intently as a young boy. He instilled in me the love of the English language. By observing and listening to him, I learned how humanity functions. Learning English from him helped me to put this knowledge into words. However, the book, the manuscript, was rejected by almost all publishers. But I never gave up pitching the Tamil story, never. Because this is not my story, ladies and gentlemen. This is our collective story. Thomas Edison once said, many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Pretty much everyone told me there is no way this book will ever be published, especially by a major publisher like Penguin Random House. Success, ladies and gentlemen, is seeing what others can't. It is believing when others don't, because life is a long journey. We sometimes forget rejection is part of the process, and that process is a journey. It goes when you go, it stops when you stop. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to note that Prisoner number 1056 became immediate #1 national bestseller in Canada. and it was published by Penguin Random House. Mountains are made of little rocks. It takes many little steps to get there. For me, it took me many years and many false steps to get here. But each time, it felt like the ending of everything. Though even now, I am still sometimes not sure about things. After all, I have poured my heart into things that didn't matter. But I had to go to war with a man in the mirror. An empty stomach and broken soul taught me many valuable lessons. The positive things in life always come from when you face life's biggest challenges. Loss is not something just happens, it really becomes part of you. Emotional wounds never heal, they fester. Today, I feel like I have learned so much over the past 35 years. It really made me more conscious of life and how I want to spend mine and make the most of it. Because it's not accolades that you take with you, but the impact you leave behind on this world. Hopefully a positive one. When I see my Tamil son with 18-year-olds with different backgrounds and skin colors having fun, inspires me and gives me hope for humanity. When I see those friends caring for each other and being not judgmental, gave me hope for humanity. It is heartwarming to see that as a father. He now lives in a world that is far different and a million times better than the one I grew up in. That, ladies and gentlemen, is hope for humanity. From the time he was born, all I wanted was for him to not to have to make the choices I had to make. And for him not to go around being fearful that somehow some people would come after him because he is a Tamil. I just didn't want him to have that fear in his heart. To that end, when I think of Canada and nations like the UK, I am reminded of the Irish proverb, when I count my blessings, I count you twice. Like many immigrants from everywhere else, Eelam Tamils were determined to overcome our tortured past and build new lives. So the next generation would never have to endure the sense of terror that we associated with our ancestral homeland. We gain the gift of freedom and democracy in these nations. It is a collective win of an epic proportion. One thing we kept doing was that never thought twice about and continuing on. Regardless whether life lifted us or broke us down, we kept going, thanks to newfound freedom and democracy. So it was very fitting that this book is dedicated to freedom and democracy. My appreciation for both is boundless. Finally, don't ever trip over what's behind you. You have to let the past go. Revenge is not the solution. Living well is. Despair can become a doorway. Perspective is the key to how one fares in life. All you can control in life is how you respond to life. Many Tamils have done this. I repeat, the path to happiness begins and ends in the mind. You have to let the past go, otherwise it will pull you down. Because what is in the way, ladies and gentlemen, is the way. If you spend too much time thinking about your past, you won't be ready for the future, because there's always a struggle behind success. So thank you for, first of all, Sri Skandaraja. I think he's outside, and my good friend Bhaskaran Kandaya, who isn't here today, and the IBC team, Niraj David and his team for really doing all the heavy lifting and putting this event together, and for you for coming and attending this event. I'm honored, humbled, and incredibly moved by the invitation to be here. Despite all the struggles in life and strife, I'm incredibly, incredibly fortunate to have been born as a Tamil. I'm an accidental Sri Lankan by birth, a proud Canadian by choice, and unapologetic Tamil by heritage. Valka Tamil Moli, Valarka Tamilanam. Now, I wasn't going to read a passage of the book, but if you insist, or if you ask that I should, then I will definitely pick a paragraph or two and read it for you. Well, that seems like unanimous. So I could read about many things in the book, and given that there's a lot of younger members here in the audience, I want to maybe read something a little more uplifting than something torturous, because, as I said, it's no point living in the past. And so what I thought maybe I will read is the encounter behind how I got the job in the mailroom. And I retired from the business on August 31st, 2 days ago. And I retired as the vice chairman of CI Global Asset Management. It is the largest independent asset management company in the country, managing over $400 billion of assets. I started in that firm as a mailroom boy in 1989, February 20th, at the age of 19. So I spent 34 years of my life into this company. When I started, we had under $200 million in management, and I was the 25th employee because my extension was 225 and my CEO's extension was 200. And it has been an incredible ride, and I decided to leave the firm to give chance for other young leaders to take over. So I was going to sort of read about the part where I'm going for this interview. And just to give a little bit of background, I applied for this job one day after deciding I need to work on Bay Street. And the thought for working on Bay Street, which is the Wall Street of Canada, I was cleaning this building called Scotia Tower, which is on 44 King Street in Toronto, right in the middle of the business district at King and Bay Street. So I was in this massive office, maybe half of this hall, and cleaning this office to me was eye-opener. It had couches and wine fridge, big boardroom, and a corner office looking onto Bay Street. And I was thinking, it was 9 o'clock at night as I was cleaning this building. I was about 18 years old, thinking one day I should aspire to have an office like this. So that night, when I went home, I quit all the jobs I had and applied for this job wherever on Bay Street. It didn't matter. So I applied for this job, went for the interview, and the lady who interviewed me deemed me as not worthy of an interview with the employer on Bay Street, so rejected me. As I was leaving in rejection, I could hear the receptionist at this agency firm was in frustration repeating an address to this person on the other line, saying, yes, 401 Bay Street, yes, 12th floor, yeah, 401 Bay Street, yes, you're right, it's Universal Group, that's the job, that's where the mailroom job is. So I figure That's where the job is. And I'm going to go here and try my luck. So I gave you a little bit of background, so I had to read all of it. So I will pick one part where, yeah, I hear this. Okay. So this is after me hearing the address. I hurried back to the subway station, chanting that address like a mantra. 401 Bay Street, 12th floor. 401 Bay Street, 12th floor. Those words were the direction to a new life. I asked the ticket taker in the booth, how do I get to 401 Bay Street? Go to the southbound platform, take the train to Queen Station, he said. I hopped on the next train, working on my plan and keeping the address on a memory loop. I had no plan. I was acting on adrenaline. I arrived about 10 minutes later. I ran out and asked the man in the booth, how do I get to 401 Bay Street? He pointed to a flight of stairs and said, go up those and then go left to Bay Street. It is the building in front of the clock tower, the old city hall. I ran up the stairs and found the building right away. Appa once shared with me D.H. Lawrence's famous poem about self-pity. I never saw a wild thing sorry for itself. A small bird will drop frozen dead from a bough without ever having felt sorry for itself. What an amazing thought, Appa said, marveling at this poem. To those who don't know what Appa is dad. So Steve's benefit, I want to make sure he understands what I'm saying here. In the natural world, self-pity doesn't exist. Self-pity is unique to humans. It is our burden and the locus of our self-destruction. Self-pity is the fastest way to destroying yourself. Appa was adamant on this. I recall the lines as I was about to walk unannounced. A small bird will drop frozen dead from a bough without ever having felt sorry for itself. Better to be that bird than a self-pitying coward. I wanted to stand up with a stiffer spine as if I was going to draw a bow. I did not wish to go home defeated while pitying myself. That's how I found myself at 401 Bay Street, uninvited, just one block north of Scotiabank building that I used to clean. One of the greatest freedom I gained from growing up amid war was that I no longer worried about what was going to happen tomorrow. I was just happy to be alive on any given day. I had already danced with death twice at a very young age, and I was still among the living. People often shrug and ask, what's the worst that can happen? I knew the worst that could happen. I knew it all too well, but also knew it wasn't going to happen at 401 Bay Street. Knowing the worst made me more resolute. Being rejected by a job agency was certainly not going to break me. Rejection only strengthened my resolve. I hopped on the elevator from the bright lit lobby and took it to the 12th floor. Through the glass door, I could see company sign on the wall behind the reception, Universal Savings. It read. The receptionist's name was Juliet. It said on the plate that rested on top of her imposing desk. May I help you? She warmly asked. I understand there's a job for mailroom, I replied. It was dark, cold, snowy winter day in Toronto. I was drenched in snow, now melting off my byway jacket due to the sudden heat generated by my body, as if I had caught a high fever. My body was on full overdrive, adrenaline. Did the agency send you? She responded. I admitted they hadn't. I didn't admit they had deemed me unworthy. You have to come through the agency, said Juliet apologetically. But I wasn't going to leave. Can I at least speak to the hiring manager? No, she said, I couldn't. And yet, I couldn't leave. No way forward, no way back. In my agitation, I asked Juliet again, and she had the same answer. A white lady in her 30s popped her head out and said, "Hi, I'm Gail, the manager. Can I help you?" Her office must have been within earshot of reception. She must have heard the commotion. The opportunity I had been asking for had just materialized. "I know you have a vacancy in the mailroom. I want that job. I will work hard for you, and you will never regret it," I said in my accented English. She hesitated. Her face was an expressional mask. It allowed the smoky ember of hope to flicker into a flame just a little. "Follow me to my office," she said coolly. As she turned to walk down the corridor, she was probably hoping to avoid a scene. I happily obliged. Once in her office, she said, "Why do you want this job so badly?" This was my chance. I gave her the Reader's Digest version of my life story. By this time, I had sponsored Amma, and I wanted a permanent job so I could look after her. Told her that too. We spoke for at least an hour, half an hour. At the end, she caved. "I have a brother who's about your age," she said. "I wish he was responsible as you." What was she getting at? My hope was getting warmer. "But you still have to come through the agency. We need to honor our contract with them. I will take it from here. Welcome to Universal," said Gail. I was in. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. It was dated February 16, 1989, and signed by Lauren, who had interviewed me at the agency. So this letter was still sitting behind on my wall until the last day of my job, ladies and gentlemen. And I will stop there, the read, and I'll say that is how you win in life. If you think you're a victim, you'll stay as a victim. So for the kids in the room, when somebody says, if everybody says you can't do it, then it can't be done. It is true every time this happened in my life. It is true when I wrote the book. Someone said, "Are you crazy? You know how difficult it is to publish a book?" People told me I can't do the job that I did. People told me I can't even be in the mailroom. People told me I could not be the head of a distribution firm. People told me I couldn't be a vice chairman. People told me I won't know how to talk to board of directors. I proved every single person wrong. And I'll say this again also, is that just because people say this all the time, if you can put your mind to it, you can succeed in anything, that's not true either. Because I am 5'8", and I don't know how to jump. So there's no way, it doesn't matter how much I train, I'm never going to be a great basketball player. It's never going to happen. But every single one of you has an innate quality, some strength. Focus on those and amplify those and become good at that one thing you will be great at. And that's how you win in life. But at the same time, don't let anyone tell you you can't do it either, because those people who tell you they never succeeded in life, so they don't want you to either. So keep those in mind. And if you have any questions, I will take them. I'll happily be around to sign books and shake hands and take pictures as well after this. Thank you, and have a great night.